And so the basis of today is, and especially over the last year, right? We've seen a rush for work from home, allow us all to have more flexibility, but we've really blown up the perimeter of all of our enterprises, right? Everyone's home network is now on the network, and all of our applications have moved beyond our corporate firewalls into these SaaS providers. So at the end of the day, identity is our first and last line of defense for security moving forward. And right, every single person and their devices are really now our threat points that we need to better protect. So, and as we look at that, right, we can say in the industry, there's been discussion on Google's Beyond Corp, which is what they started implementing about 10 years ago after the Project Aurora hack happened. And right today, with SailPoint, I think we would see a device inventory database, this pipeline really based into SailPoint, your access control engines with something like an Ping identity or an Okta. And then this trust interface is really what we're going to dig into today by integrating user behavior analytics into some of these traditional access control models. So similar to the Google diagram, we have the NIST Zero Trust diagram that's come out. This was published about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago at this point. But right, we've got all of these external systems that are pushing into our identity-based zero trust control plane and pushing into this policy decision point. But when you look at this, right, you've got your CDM systems if you're in federal. So what are the users? What are the devices? What are the systems on the network? All of their attributes that change on a daily basis. You've got industry compliance, whether those are your security scanners that get pushed in, your threat intelligence that's coming in from the outside. What are the hacks? What are the 0 days? What are the different MITRE ATT&CK framework things that are getting pushed in? All of your activity logs for people's behaviors, the system's behaviors, right? This is a huge mess of data that needs to be pumped into this policy decision point to make decisions. And having built these things out at multiple customers over the last decade, there is no way that this policy decision point can pull data in near real time to make a decision without something in the middle. So really at the end of the day, what we're hoping to do and what we've been proving with customers in the last year is bridging the business context that we get out of identity governance systems like SailPoint, and then the security context of what we have inside of Splunk or ArcSight or Exabeam or insert your favorite log aggregation tool, right? But at the end of the day, right, we've got all of this security data of what people are accessing, what they aren't accessing, right? That's sometimes as important as what they are accessing of, hey, if you've got access to this thing and you don't use it, why do you have those permissions there? That's an ability for someone to come in and pivot and use that, right? Or, hey, this is the first time someone's accessed that data or accessed that application. That's new and different. But these SOC analysts have no idea of our business context, right? Is this somebody who's a contractor that's leaving our contract in the next 45 days, right? We talked about in the earlier sessions how we can build some certifications off of that and contract renewal and override processes. But, right, we can also start giving that data to our SOC analysts because, right, 45 days ago, that's when a contractor might look to exfil some data to use on their next engagement. Or, hey, this is a new person that just joined the organization. They might be new and they might be just plunking around trying to figure out where they need to go. Or they might be somebody from the outside looking to get very specific data and try and get it out before they get caught, right? That's the things our SOC analysts today have no insight to. And vice versa, on our identity and access governance side, right? We don't know really the behaviors of what people are doing, what applications they're accessing, how frequently they're accessing that application, how they look compared to their peers, right? A lot of times in these user behavior analytics tools, we're looking at the roles people are in, what departments they're in, and comparing them to the other people on their team, right? Is this person a power user and really they just hit a lot more things or are more efficient, or are they trying to scrape things, right? We don't get any of that context in our identity an access management side. So being able to bridge those two things together is really what we're doing with these user behavior analytics pieces today. So as I said, right, all of these contextual events in the employees, contractors, privileged user side are things that we have in our identity governance systems that we want to be able to push over, right? From a senior executive position, we see a lot of these new hacks coming out where senior executives are getting emails or their accounts are being taken over. Right, those are specific watch lists that we might want to put this finance or the SOC people on. Same thing with finance users, people who can transfer money in and out. Right, what are the normal amounts they transfer? Automatically, they just transferred $1 million out when they normally do 100,000. That could be an issue, right? So all of those types of triggers going back and forth, and then more of the traditional privilege users, right? Has this person's had 5 or 6 failed password attempts, or have they hit a bunch of applications they don't normally hit? Maybe we tell CyberArk, our privileged access tools, CyberArk, Beyond Trust, Thycotic, what have you, Centrify, right? Hey, this person's been showing some weird behavior lately. Don't let them into the privileged systems to get passwords to more advanced data right now until, right, their risk scores go down. And on the opposite side, where we've got all this security context of successful logins, failed logins, what physical locations they're coming from, right? This might be a person with a good username and password, but they just logged in with a new device. Or, hey, they failed login 5 times and then immediately registered a new MFA token. Well, that's weird, right? That means to me someone tried to bang on the front door, finally hit a password that worked, and then now have to try and get through MFA and probably used, right, our traditional ID proofing stuff of compromised data that was leaked from Equifax years ago to prove who they are and added an MFA device. Maybe we want to build some more trust with that person and the device that they're presenting before we let them into some more of these privileged things, right? And that's what user behavior analytics is able to give us. So with that, I wanted to go into a little bit of the Solarigate problems that we saw and how we can use these pieces coming together to make this work better. So the diagram on the right was released by Microsoft just before the holidays about some of the pivot attacks that they saw. One of the big things that they saw was, right, I think we all need to, and the attitude should be that we are going to get hacked at some point, right? And the attackers are always changing their approaches. Solarigate is a huge blown open hole, but right, we're still getting phishing attempts, we're still getting malware on devices, but we should assume that things are compromised. And every time we look at these compromises, the first thing the attackers do is pivot to an identity and access management system. And for the first time, we saw them go more advanced attacks. Well, not the first time, but they were pretty sophisticated this time, right? We saw them bypassing Duo MFA by compromising Active Directory signed DLLs. We saw them taking the trust certificates from on-site, right? So if there's a SAML connection, you might have within your organization that then federates a connection over to AWS or federates a connection over into Azure. They were taking those on-premises certificates and then just moving them to their own IDP and then sending new SAML assertions that are signed with the valid certificate just from a different place in the world or a different IP address. Those are all the type of things that user behavior analytics tools and entity behavior analytics tools are very, very good at catching, right? Hey, every time that you authenticate to Azure, the IDP trusted IP address is from these 5 different IPs, right? That's your proxies coming out from your corporate network, or if you're using an external provider, right, their IP addresses. All of a sudden, you have signed certificates coming from a different IP that we've never seen before in maybe even a different part of the world, right? That's freaking weird. But a lot of times we're not looking at that stuff. Or, right, we saw when that didn't work, we saw them actually get access to the admin interfaces on the Azures of the world and add a new IDP and a new trust certificate, right? Those are all logs that the Exabeams of the world, the user behavior analytics tools can key off of very, very easily and immediately start throwing alerts to our SOC, right? And similarly, tell our access control systems, hey, block anything coming from this IP because weird stuff's going on and we don't want to trust this thing anymore. We also saw them come in and very quickly add users into admin interfaces and then create child accounts off of those with less privileged permissions, but still strong enough to do bad things, and then delete that super privileged account. Right? Those are the things that SailPoint's really good at, and being able to connect to those systems and be like, hey, there's an account here that we didn't create. That's bad, and actually immediately go ahead and kill that account or put it in timeout and disable it, right? And then maybe that raises a SOAR action back to your Exabeam or your Splunk teams that says, hey, go investigate this because this isn't normal behavior. So really, identity is our key, and with the addition of user behavior analytics, to trust and protect our organizations moving forward. So I don't have an ability to share videos on this today, but I will say we have some pretty advanced demonstrations on the Uber Ether YouTube channel between SailPoint and Exabeam. And I'm going to talk through a couple of those here. So one of the things we've built is an ability to enhance the context for your SOC analysts. We're using the built-in reporting capabilities of SailPoint to go ahead and define really reports that say, hey, give me a list of all the people that have been hired in the last 30 days. Give me a list of all the contractors on contracts that are expiring in the next 45 days. Give me a list of all of the people who don't have managers assigned to them right now, right? And automatically take that data and populate lists inside of the user behavior analytics tools. Right? And then so that way, when a SOC analyst actually sees somebody showing bad behavior, they now have that business context of, oh, this is the role or the business context that person is in right now. So, hey, if they don't have a manager, there's a chance they can think they can get away with things they don't normally do. Well, now that I know that, let's go ahead and start beating up some of our SOAR actions around people exfilling data or trying to get overprivileged, right? Hey, this is the contractor that's probably not going to have a job with us in the next 45 days. Okay, now I know that they're probably doing exfil. Let's run our playbooks against that and pull all of the aggregate logs for that user across all the systems together. So we've got those capabilities in to generate those reports in SailPoint and automatically update that data inside of Exabeam on a scheduled basis, whether that's every hour, every day, once a week. But that makes it really easy for our SOC analysts to use this data and push it in to be used. Additionally, we have the syncs built in so that if a person's manager is updated, if they're a contractor, their contracting officer is updated. So that's immediately linked into the SOC tools. So then if there is a problem, that all of the SOC analysts know who's responsible for this person and can click and make those calls and start triggering actions from there directly. We turn that around, right? So now we've got risk-based decision-making within the SOC, but then we also turn that around and start pulling that data back into SailPoint, pulling that data back into our access management tools like Ping or Okta or CA or what have you. But now we can start making decisions based on risk. I can't talk today. I apologize, everyone. So, hey, this person is 2 times out of their normal behavior patterns. Let's just send an email over to their manager to look at the dashboard and the behaviors, right? That in itself is extremely powerful because the SOC analysts get literally thousands of alerts a day that they don't have time to go through. They're really, as they say, looking for needles in a needle stack and don't have time to look through all of this. But if we can raise some of that visibility down to the managers, and the managers can easily go, oh yeah, I put that person on a new task yesterday. They're hitting things that they don't normally hit, but I get it, right? And real quick in the morning, just look and say, yep, all good. Or, hey, by the way, this person's behaving 5 times out of their normal behavior patterns. I get it, manager, we've sent you this message that they're a little weird, but this time they're far enough out of normal that we're going to make sure you look at the dashboard and kick off an access certification in a SailPoint tool, right? And at that point, they have to actually look at the person's access, say that they've looked at that dashboard, and certify that they're still good, right? Giving that manager an ability or a level of accountability for their user security behavior, right? Security is everyone's job. Let's give them easy ways to do that. And then even go so far as, I call it, throw the cyber kill switch. But hey, we're seeing some real, right? These user behavior analytics tools are really great at spotting user insider threat behaviors and people moving laterally across networks and moving from their own account into a privileged account into a root account and finding those patterns and triggering that up for the dashboards for the SOC analyst to see. But the SOC analysts see it, and then they're calling the help desk to shut down accounts normally, or they're calling managers to get verifications. But now we're able to, through things like SailPoint, say, hey, we're seeing a behavior pattern that looks like lateral movement. And the system itself, if we want to go that far, or we can have it raised to a dashboard and have an analyst actually kick that off with a decision on their own, but we can actually call a SailPoint and trigger a workflow that says, hey, this looks bad. We're going to disable their AD account. We're going to disable their VPN account. And then we're going to call over to the access management tool and just disable all of their in-flight sessions. So very quickly, through the AI and machine learning inside the UEBA tools, we can disable the accounts. We can disable any ability to log back in, and at the same time kill any of their in-flight browser-based actions as well, right? Extremely powerful, so that we have time to mitigate the risk and determine if, oh, this is just a bad thing that triggered and what they're doing is perfectly good, or, hey, we stopped somebody in real time from doing bad things and giving them an ability to exfil data out, right? And the nice thing about user behavior analytics is it also is called entity behavior analytics. So if somebody's compromised an API, if someone's compromised a privileged account, right? If someone's compromised a device, right? All of those things are entities that can now be triggered the same way. And we're managing bots in SailPoint now, right? We're managing privileged accounts in SailPoint, whether those are in CyberArk or Thycotic or whatever your PAM tool is. But having this centrally located in SailPoint and those integrations, right, brings this all together very, very quickly in some very, very powerful ways. And again, right, I call it infinite configurability. Infinite's a big word, but really any of the context data can be pushed into Exabeam at this point. Any of the Exabeam context data can be pulled back into a SailPoint, and then SailPoint can trigger rules, trigger workflows, trigger email alerts, call over to your access control tools. We are also currently extending that so it can be exposed via LDAP, web service, or a SQL interface, right? And that opens up that security context data directly to your access management tools, directly to any of your reporting tools, right? And really opens up that insight into people's behavior analysis in ways that we just haven't been able to do before, right? And then we're also starting to get the pure analysis group. So, right, we've got inside a SailPoint, we've always had that static data of, oh, here's all the people in the same roles. Here's all of the people that have access to the same applications, right? But now, through the security and user behavior analytics side, we have, okay, who's working in the same buildings? Who's working from the same even home office, right? Who's accessing the same applications and who's not, right? And all of that data can now be brought back in, and just released last week from a SailPoint perspective, that data can now be pushed into your certification cycle. So, right, I think a lot of us have heard the term certification fatigue, right? Where, hey, I'm an application owner and they're asking me to certify 3,000 people today. I'm just going to hit approve all because I don't have time to go through people one-on-one. But Now we can bring in this data and say, hey, we're going to run this certification, but before we send it out to get those 3,000 approvals done, we're going to run it through some of the risk scores and say, hey, now we know here's all the people that have access to your application that haven't accessed it in 90 days or accessed it in 30 days, right? Do they really need access anymore? Here's all of the people that fall within an acceptable range of behavior based on what they're doing in your application. So they're doing their job, right? Here's the list of people who are doing really weird things, or they're your power users, but those are the ones you should pay attention to. So when you come into those certifications, we'll have an ability to say, hey, here's everybody that we think should be pre-approved, and we're just going to give them the thumbs up. So you really don't have to review that. You should review them, but right, these are the lowest risk ones, and depending on your business, we might actually just say we're going to approve these automatically, right? Here's the ones that haven't accessed it, and we're nominating for removal of their access, right? And that might be a list of maybe 50 users that's real quick to roll through and be like, yeah, that person, I don't know why, but they don't even work here anymore. Or, oh yeah, they got moved to that new role. They don't need this thing anymore. And then here's the people that are doing things that we don't think are quite normal. And right, that just makes that whole life much, 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 much simpler for everything going on. So, and we can do that today. Previously, we were able to extend the SailPoint interfaces to do it, but now there's native ways of doing that. And that's extremely powerful, not only through user behavior analytics, but also through myriads of other tools that we can now give much, much more context on the certifications that are going on. So at the end of the day, we've got truly a 360-degree view of what's going on between the security systems and your identity governance systems. So at the end of the day, this truly is the game changer. In the last year, as I've said, right, we opened up all of our internal networks to everybody's home office. We've cut some corners from a security perspective to allow people to work from home in these difficult times. And I don't think we're going to go back to in the office every day of the week. And these things we've opened are going to stay open for a long time. So we really need to use things like user behavior analytics to give us that leg up, that AI machine learning to comb through the data that there's just no way we can hire enough people to do that and enable our organizations, right? And at the end of the day, that's where we were moving anyways with zero trust, right? And if you look at any zero trust article, any roadmap, any maturity matrix, the first thing you got to fix is identity and the human identity as part of that before you even get to the devices that people are using, right? And if we can get that human identity fixed, if we can get that behavior into our access control engines, into our identity governance engines, right? That's going to make you and your organization so much less of a target than anybody else. And the attackers will move on to the low-hanging fruit, right? And that's sadly the cat and mouse game we play, right? Make it harder to break into your organization than the next guy that they're trying to go after, right? And then again, this delivers huge time to value. These integrations are very quick and easy to put in place, but you have so much flexibility and configurability to enable your security teams, enable your identity teams, and even enable the business and your managers to have better view and impact to share the security. I don't know if I call it problem, wealth, knowledge, but right, just share that job across the organization. I got to figure out some better way to put that. So anyways, at this point, I will stop for questions. As I said, look for in the next couple of weeks a new series of these webinars more focused on vendor integrations, right? How do we manage SailPoint with AWS? How do we manage SailPoint on Azure? How might you use SailPoint to save money for your organization and automatically take back licenses for things in Office 365 that people aren't using, right? How many times do we just need Visio for a couple weeks or Project for a couple weeks and then that never gets taken away, right? Well, we can do things to automatically say, hey, this person hasn't accessed it in a month. Send them a note that says, do you still need that? And if they say no, cool. We'll just take that away and save the organization $20 a month. Do that times a couple thousand people. That's real money. And then some other cool integrations that have been coming out lately, right? Extend these approvals, extend these requests into Teams and Slack, right? That's where a lot of us are doing our chat and work every day. So instead of making someone come into a SailPoint interface, let's put it where people are on a daily basis. And right, I can also make my approvals in the middle of the day from my phone as I'm on everyone's favorite calls all day long. So some really cool things coming up in that series that I'm super excited for. So I'm taking a look, not seeing any questions come in, but hopefully this was at least entertaining for everybody. I truly think this is the next generation of identity and access management and where we need to go as an industry to truly help protect our organizations. So with that, if no questions, I will turn it back to Julia to close out for the day. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Matt. I'd like to thank all of our participants as well as Matt for being with us today. We hope that this information you received during the webinar has been helpful to you and your organization. As a reminder, everyone will receive a recording of the presentation in a follow-up email. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to call or email us. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.